Hello, fellow female activists. Today we'll be hitting on nourishment again. I'm Cathy Pettis, your wellness coach and fellow female activist. And if you are new here, welcome. If you are someone who is already familiar, then you know that we are going to start with our positive quotient repetitions, or PQ reps. So anyone who's new, this is a good time for you to get into a safe space. Same as if you were in a meditation sequence. You want to be somewhere where you can be in a quiet space, where you feel safe. If you feel you can close your eyes, please do so. And that is what I will be doing. So here we go. Whether you are laying down, sitting, or standing, feel free to close your eyes, again, if you feel safe. And what I want you to do is go ahead and, without changing your breath, and if it's available to you, go ahead and only breathe through your nose. So you're going to inhale through your nose, and you can be very, very attentive, or I should say, you're going to be very observant of your breath as you inhale. And then go ahead and exhale through your nose and be very, very attentive. Again, not changing your breath. What do you notice about your breathing? What parts of your body can you feel that sensation of breathing? If you're aware of it, can you feel how the air is cooler as it comes into your nose, and how it's warmer as it exits your nose? You feel the air actually pushing down at the skin right underneath your nose and right above your lip, your top lip. And when you're ready, feel free to flutter your eyes open. That, my friends, if you're new to this, is what we call a positive quotient repetition, okay, or positive quote, or I should say PQ reps. And that is how we start every single video here. So I'm Cathy Pettis, and again, if you're new, welcome. I am here as a fellow female activist and a wellness coach to make sure that you, again, as an activist, are making sure that you are instituting and continuing and habitually using self-care to make sure that you put yourself first. We all know that this is going to be a wild ride in the coming weeks, months, years, right? And we want to be ready for it from the standpoint of from the inside out. We have the power. We can empower ourselves to make sure that we're living a lifestyle that's going to be full of longevity, positivity, okay, and empowerment. So, like I said earlier, we are going to be talking about nourishment. So, nourishment. I will reiterate every time I say anything. The words I use are very, very what I would call intentional. Okay. So you're not going to hear me talk about what you would normally hear when it comes to nutrition. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I am trying to bring to you the idea that, again, empowerment comes from the inside out, meaning us. Okay. So nourishment is something that we have 100% control over in most cases. Okay. I will always do my best to be sensitive, okay, to anyone's situation, to anyone's possible, challenges. And so when I speak, I'm very aware of any type of isms, okay, And I'm doing my best to be more inclusive, right? And to make sure that I am speaking to anyone who might be listening, regardless of where you are right now in your life, so to speak. So nourishment for activists, okay? I do have notes, so I always want to make sure that I'm not just spewing out. I can talk just from experience alone about these topics, but I have specific points that I always want to be making. So to start off, okay, what I want you to do is start to really think about the words that you use, okay, or that you hear or that you read when it comes to anything that has to do with your physical health, okay, to include what you would consider nutrition, all right? I would prefer that you start using words that, to me, have more of a overall reaching wellness viewpoint, meaning nourishment, okay, versus your diet. So there's too much negativity associated with the word diet. Now, we can always change a word's meaning, correct? I mean, it happens all the time. But for our general community, okay, I want you to realize how important it is the words you say matter. And I think as activists, we already know that, right? But I want us to take careful attention when it comes to our own, again, more awareness about how we speak to ourselves. Okay. So let's start to deprogram away from the word diet when it comes to how we feed ourselves, how we nourish ourselves. I would much rather you think about nourishment as a sort of like a kind of like a big vessel. Okay. Like think about it like just like a glass vessel. Nourishment, right, is something we can easily see because you can see through that glass vessel, okay? And it's going to show us everything that's inside of us, right? So nourishment isn't just about what we're consuming, okay? It's actually, believe it or not, starting from here, okay, the mental fitness part, and then it flows through us, okay? So back to that glass vessel. When we are thinking about nourishment versus a diet, we can honestly see through that glass vessel exactly what's going on, right? And so every time you think about anything you're consuming, whether that's hydration, i.e., water, or whatever you're drinking, okay, and then consuming any of the food you're consuming, think about how that's going to look through that glass vessel, okay? And that's just one way to think about it. What I'm wanting you to really, what I want to sink in into your noggin is I want you to stop thinking about diet, okay? You eat for nourishment. That's simple. Now you eat for pleasure, I'm sure. As humans, we enjoy the food, right? We enjoy when we consume, or we're hoping to. So it's okay to understand that there is pleasure involved when you're nourishing yourself, but there's other components of nourishment. And I'll, step into other topics with that, with that thought process. But right now, I'm very singular in how I want you to go about thinking again about nourishment. So today, instead of thinking about a diet, again, instead of thinking about your meals, however many they are in your day or on your waking hours, again, trying to be cognizant, not everyone, has waking hours during daytime. Many people work night shifts, right? So nourishment comes in different formats. So when we're talking about consuming, though, right, we want to think about, okay, this is not just about, to put it in another way, I want you to get away from saying diet at all possible, when at all possible. And I want you to think about getting away from, again, the scale. Okay. So this particular channel is not about, okay, any type of weight loss. Now, I'm a healthy eating and weight loss coach. That's my official title, but I don't go by that because that's not what I'm about. I want you to nourish your body the best way you can. Again, you are your best advocate. You are your best healthcare advocate. All right. So, nourishment. It has different meanings, okay? But I want you to start thinking about how it looks inside of you, okay? So again, the word diet. Now, the word diet is neutral. Any word could be neutral, right? It's the subjectivity, right, that we give to it that gives it meaning, right? So the word diet is a neutral word, and then we give it its meaning. I understand that. But because of how the health and wellness, fitness industry overall have utilized these words, it's become harmful, right? So we want to at least take what we used to know and turn it on its head if we can do so. So instead of using diet, just say, okay, how can I nourish my body? Okay, so that's point number one. A second point I want to get across is we eat, okay, for survival. Let's just, Laszlo, is it Laszlo? The hierarchy, right, of needs. We literally eat to survive, all right? And eating, again, is necessary for life. So that's why I want you to think about nourishment versus a diet, okay? I want you to think about the fact that whenever you are consuming, you are helping yourself survive. And that means that it doesn't matter. Well, let me put it this way. In this particular moment, I'm not going to, harp on you about what type of nourishment you should maybe think about. What I'm trying to get at is that instead of thinking about, oh, maybe if I only eat this amount, then the scale is not going to move or the scale is going to go the way I want it. I want you to drop away from a scale. Okay, here's my little story about scales. So, yours truly dealt with basically the disorder anorexia. Okay. And that went on for about, I don't know, 3 years almost. And that was not good. And I was very young. And so, interesting enough, right? I was very much into health and wellness. Like that's my passion. That's what I was, very much interested in my junior high years. And then unfortunately, I took it a little too far and it developed into an eating disorder. And the scale became my master. And without getting too far into that part of my life, I will just say this. Now, by choice, I don't have scales anywhere near me because it's not conducive to my well-being. Now, let's say that you're someone, okay, and I'll take it to the other extreme. Let's say maybe you're someone that is having, her medical community tell her, you know what, you have um, issues, okay, for lack of a better term, with the scale. We need to make sure that that scale number is going down. I can understand that, okay, but there are so many other more important vital signs. Or let me put it this way. A good friend of mine who is a vegan coach, a vegan fitness coach, Karina Inkster, yay, I love her. And I'll even I'll go ahead and put her YouTube channel below. But what I love about Karina and how she produces, or I should say, how she goes about her coaching, she's weight neutral. And she's about inclusivity. She is about making sure that whatever her client is looking towards as a goal, that it makes sense for them, but she also wants to make sure that she's empowering them. So they don't have before and after pictures in her company or her organization. They don't use the lingo that you've been used to. They're very neutral about how they approach each of their clients' goals. Okay. So if in fact maybe you are someone who, for medical reasons, let's say, has that scale in front of you, what Karina says is so important. Go ahead and use the scale to help you, monitor, right, and track how you're doing physically. And only if you add another vital sign with the weight, because weight alone, that's not very telling. It doesn't actually give you any useful information, believe it or not. Same with BMI. I won't even go there. That's a whole nother video. But what I'm getting at is if all you're thinking about is a scale, And instead of nourishment, what am I putting in my body? And all you're thinking about is, oh, what is the scale saying? Well, guess what? If you are someone, and I'm thinking that most of the people listening are going to be people like me who are female and in perimenopause or menopause age group. If you're in that age group, there are a lot of things going on, okay? And none of them alone can tell you, oh, that's why the scale is this way. No, if you again happen to be again in perimenopause or menopause, okay, you're all over the map. Now, the same thing happens to those who are still in their reproductive years, okay, who still are menstruating regularly. And I will also tell you, don't only use the scale because the scale is not a true measurement of what's going on in your body. Just for starters, your menstrual cycle, many people don't realize this who menstruate. Your menstrual cycle, and this is another video I can get into, your menstrual cycle, it's not the period. That's just the end of your menstrual cycle. Your menstrual cycle follows the lunar calendar, i.e., your lunar cycle, your menstrual cycle is at least 28, maybe 25, depending, right? But 25 to 32 days or 30 days. It follows the lunar cycle. So the period part where you're bleeding, that's only 1 week of a 4-week cycle. Okay. So what I'm getting at is if all you're ever worried about when it comes to nourishment is the scale, you're missing everything. And I mean that quite literally. When you want to establish a better self-care for yourself when it comes to nourishment, feel free if you want. If you're attached to the scale, fine. And you will add another vital sign to match up your weight. Okay? Meaning you're just not going to look at the weight every single day as you're nourishing yourself. You're actually going to say, okay, well, what does my blood pressure say about what I am eating along with my weight? As Karina always said, you cannot use weight alone as a measurement. It has to be attached to another vital sign. Point number 2, the scale isn't everything. In fact, I would say it's the only reason why it's used so much is simply because it's easy to extrapolate. You go, unfortunately, and it should have never been this way, but you go to any doctor's appointment, and the first thing they do is they weigh you. They don't even bother with your height. They just weigh you. Well, isn't BMI next to, it's based, unfortunately, it's very based on patriarchy and misogyny. But anyway, so is the whole medical system. But what I'm getting at is the BMI numbers were meant for a mass of people, not one person. And it was also based on male European men, right? So males, sorry. And so BMI, no bueno. Okay, it's not cool. It doesn't stand for anything useful. So the same thing with the scale. Please start getting away from thinking that all I have to worry about is that number on the scale. No, because it's going to fluctuate every single day. As a woman, okay, with hormones and a lot of them, and depending on where you are in your menstrual cycle, your weight is going to fluctuate up to 10 pounds. So I do not want you to ever be grieving about what you see on the scale. I want you to add a scale number with a vital sign number. Okay. And you might be surprised how that changes your perspective. All right. So nourishment, you're thinking, how does this have to do with nourishment? Well, guess what? When you start to realize that what you see on the scale, okay, is only a small portion of what you're actually, the nourishment part, then you start to realize, oh gosh, maybe I should rethink about how I'm eating, right? Nourishment has many components to it, but I want you to take little baby steps and start saying, okay, first of all, again, your diet. The word diet just has too many connotations to it, and most of them are negative. So let's start just thinking about, okay, how am I nourishing my body? My meals are based on survival. I am here to survive and hopefully flourish. So I'm not going to think about my meals as a diet. I'm going to think of them as nourishment. Okay. Two, I'm not going to worry about the scale. Again, if you have the necessity from your medical team to track your weight, fine. But you're going to also attach another tracking vital sign to it, preferably your blood pressure. Your blood pressure is a heck of a more useful, even on its own, than just a weight. Okay. The scale, again, on its own means nothing, quite honestly. You need to attach another vital sign to it. All right. So that was number two. Ditch the scale if you can. But if not, add another vital sign to it to track. And point number three about nourishment. It's about the 80-20 rule. Our whole existence as humans is based on the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of how we just move about on our daily basis is based on 20% of what we're thinking, of how we habitually perform. Isn't that crazy? So, meaning that most of our lives are spent learning something and then we get to practice it. Well, that's the 80-20 rule. 20% is the learning part, okay? 80% is then the actual doing part, okay? So why is this important for nourishment? Because if you are, unfortunately, 80% of the time nourishing or believing that you're nourishing yourself and you're only eating maybe once a day and it's nothing but, let's just say, processed food, are you really nourishing yourself? No. Another way to think about it is we're not perfect. And so I'm not telling you that you have to eat veggies all day long. What I am saying is that that 80-20% rule actually makes a difference. So me, I love chocolate. And if I could, I would probably eat chocolate cake every day. That's not going to be very nourishing to my body. So instead, what I choose is that the 80-20 rule, 80% of my meal throughout the day, okay, through my waking hours, is going to be based on those macronutrients I previously talked about. So getting my protein, getting my carbs, getting the fiber and the fat, making sure I have hydration, right? And the 20% is that I'm going to have maybe a little Hershey's Kiss, with my meal. Or maybe I'm going to have, a hot chocolate later in my evening. That's the 80-20 rule. 80% of my day or my waking hours, sorry, is spent eating as sufficiently as I can. And doing so, that's going to actually give me proper nourishment, correct? And then 20% is me enjoying whatever little, I guess you could say little, uh, I don't want to say, I guess you could just call it a treat, right? It's a treat. Now, you can turn it on its head, the 80-20 rule, right? And then unfortunately say, okay, 20% of the time, I'm going to be eating as well as I could, but then 80% of the time, I'm going to have, fast food. Well, it works either way, correct? But I would like to think that the 80-20 rule really works in our favor because we're not perfect. No one is perfect. And I don't care how stringent you are with yourself, which I don't recommend, but if you are stringent with yourself, please understand that at some point your willpower is. So please, 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 nourishment, it comes in different forms. And I want to leave you with this. Find support, okay, however that looks. And do not believe that you get to do this all alone. It's not about, again, I'm not trying to upend your world. What I want to do is have you have a little levity when it comes to what might otherwise be overwhelming. So instead, again, of thinking about, okay, my diet sucks and I have to overhaul everything. No, as an activist, you already know how important self-care is. Now we just want to take it and let it be a little less stressful, right? So nourishment instead of a diet. Not thinking about the scale, okay, if losing pounds is something that's important to you, but realizing that the scale number along with another vital sign is a must. You want to know what that weight is associated with. Okay. And then the 80-20 rule for the third point. The 80-20 rule, it is human. Okay. It is a human trait. It is so true. And let it work in your favor, right? We are not perfect. I am not trying to be perfect. Okay. It's not possible to be perfect. Recovering perfectionist here. And I also know that when you use the 80-20 rule to your advantage, that's when you'll really see your nourishment intake happen, right? So my call to action, okay, is that you at least take one idea out of the three, okay, whether that is not using the word diet so much, or if you are tracking your weight through the scale, then you add another vital sign to it and tell your medical team that you're doing so. Or three, okay, what or who are you going to reach out to help you, okay, with the nourishment part? All right. Help is a sign of power, right? We all know this. Asking for assistance is not a sign of weakness. And we must, as activists, support each other. Okay. So we are done here. If you are at all interested, okay, in learning more about the PQ reps and how that can become a habit in your life, feel free to drop that in the comments. Say, I want to learn more about PQ or PQ. And then also like and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Until then, take care, take charge. God bless.